All right, next work in progress on the Narin Wolverine / Logan. So last night I uploaded not the best video I've ever done, but because I was just trying to use a different camera and until I get the correct setup, it's not going to work very good. But I have a brand new cell phone. I actually got the Samsung S20 Ultra 5G, so like the best of the best. Pretty cool. So I'm going to try recording on this. So we're going to work on skin tones for this guy. So he's already been primed, and I've done a kind of a light misting already. I mixed this up last night, just some of my craft paint is kind of this. Try to get a little better exposure. I don't know, kind of a bright pinky fleshy tone, and I'm trying some new things here. Again, always trying new things. So I really like that kind of splatter effect I've been doing lately that I stole from Raphael. I always say I'll put a link to his channel below, but I'll try to remember this time. He does some really nice paint ups, and I've been following him for a long time, so I've been really digging that technique because I get a really nice kind of natural inconsistent skin tone, if that makes sense. So it's got like the kind of like little blemishes and stuff because skin isn't perfect. It's got, look at my skin, it's got freckles and different tones going on in there, and that technique really kind of helps emulate that. So what I did is I put this in my airbrush, I watered it down just a little bit, and you can see here that it's not completely opaque. It's actually kind of speckled on there, and I really kind of like that. So I'm going to kind of go with that here for a little bit. I'm actually, instead of doing the brush with the speckle, I'm going to try doing my airbrush. I need to go to my air compressor on. Sorry, I always forget to do that. So this first color is just very, very light. It doesn't even cover up the primer all the way, which is fine, because I kind of like seeing through that. I actually forgot I had to go back and fix the little seam here on the finger that I glued on earlier, so I sanded that down, so you can kind of see that right now, but we won't see it when we're done. I also have to go back and remember kind of the order that I do all those colors speckling in. So I'm going to get a bunch of cups here, and we're going to, I got some, clean out my airbrush from yesterday real quick. It's just got water in it from using the craft paint. But I think if I use the airbrush, I can get maybe a little more. I think it'll work. We'll see. The one thing about doing with the paintbrush, you kind of get different sizes of speckles, which is pretty natural. I'm gonna put these away. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm gonna mix up some of these craft paints. Here's my red, and I'm gonna make it a little on the thicker side so that it actually has a hard time coming out of the airbrush, so it'll speckle more. Let's see what kind of effect we get with the airbrush. Get a jar here for clean water. If I'm not liking what I'm doing here, I can always go back to flecking with the brush. So again, I got this kind of first translucent skin speckling on there, and I want to get a piece of paper. So I want to get a piece of paper to see what. I'm going to turn my air pressure down. I'm adjusting my air pressure so I just get just a little bit of air out. Right about there. So you can see here. And the air pressure is so low that I kind of have to let it build up again. So we'll see how this does. It could work, it could not work. You never know. Okay, so here's the first one. You can actually, I can zoom in pretty good on this camera. So let's see if I can Hold on. There we go. Okay. So my air pressure's, I don't know, about 10 psi. And I just kind of pump the airbrush because the air pressure is so low. Kind of gets this look going on. The brush works good, but man, it's your hand gets really tired. My hand gets cramped up after a while. I'm gonna do this part down here, even though you don't see it. So this is working pretty good. Make sure you get in all the nooks and crannies. Yeah, I'm really digging the way this technique works. Okay, so there's red. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to do that on all the parts, and we'll come back and do the next color. All right, so I did that on the arms and everything, and I just kind of checked over the pieces to make sure they look pretty consistent as far as coverage and stuff. So one thing is, as you turn your air pressure down on the airbrush, the speckles get bigger. The higher the air pressure, the smaller the speckle. So like, I went and took a little break to do something real quick, and I came back and my air pressure was a little higher. On the arms, of the speckles are a little smaller, but it's okay. All right, so we're gonna go back and we're gonna do blue now. And again, I've got a piece of paper over here I'm testing my air pressure on. Turn that just a little bit. There we go. And we're gonna do blue. Some colors show up better than others. The blue won't show up too much because I don't have a whole, you can see the primer pretty good through all this. So, again, the air pressure is so low, I kind of pump this to kind of help get the paint to come out. Now, when Raphael does this, he doesn't do as much speckling as I've been doing. I tend to go a little bit overboard, but then I find that because I'm pretty heavy-handed with the following colors that I kind of need to do that. All right, so that's what that looks like after the blue. So on the right it has the blue and the red. On the left is just red, so you can kind of see a difference there. So you can see how warm this is and how cool this turned from doing the blue. So we'll do that to the rest of the pieces, and we'll come back and do the next color. Okay, so I just want to show you. So I went back and worked on them the heads again a little bit because I was getting a little inconsistency between. I did this one first, the blue, and then I went back into this one. So I did this one. I was like, oh, that looks good. And then I put it next to this one, and it was still a little off. So I just went back and just kind of adjusted it so they're pretty similar. This guy we're gonna go with an older look, so I'm gonna do that later with some pastels, I think, just to kind of maybe give this gray maybe a slight little kind of gray tinge, and the hair's going to go a different color. It'll go gray instead of brown like the young portrait. So, but that's what that looks like. So we're going to do the arms and come back, and then we'll do the other color, which will be purple. All right, next color up in the brush is purple. Again, the same thing. This one's really hard to see because you do red and then blue, and red and blue make purple. So this one's really hard to see when you start putting it on. This will start to look better once we start adding the greens and kind of browns. It'll start to look like something. So don't do a whole lot of purple because we got the red and blue in there, which kind of already makes purple. I got a piece of paper over here again. Always just checking sometimes it's hard to see what it's doing. So there's that head. We'll do the other head on camera too, and we'll check them next to each other and do the arms. Again, this you probably won't see a whole lot of effect from the purple. So let's check those together and see how they look. Make sure they're pretty consistent. And they look pretty good. So we'll do the arms and then we'll come back and do the next color, which will be green. All right, next color is green. I actually bought some of these little splatter tips for my airbrush, but I can't get them to work. Jason Fiedler had recommended to me, but they're like little plastic things you just put on the tip of your airbrush, and you're supposed to be able to kind of use them with a higher air pressure and splatter the paint, but I can't get them to work, so I'll just do this. They actually don't fit my airbrush very well. So this is pretty subtle. So I'll show you what it looks like before and after with the other portrait. That's about it. So this one has the green on it, and this one doesn't. So I'm not sure if you can see the difference, but it's there. So we'll do the other parts with that, and then the next color will be yellow. All right, next color is going to be yellow, and just the same thing. So speckling it on there. This will show up a little bit more than the other colors. It's going to look like a psychedelic painting before we get done with all this, or when we're done with this. But then we're going to start laying our skin tones and they'll come to life. So that's with the yellow on this side and without yellow on the left. So you can kind of see a difference there. It's not a big difference, but we're getting there. So we'll do that to the rest of the parts, and then the next color will be a brown. All right, so the next color I'm doing is espresso bean. It's kind of a brown, medium to dark brown. This I'll do relatively heavily because it'll start bringing in some skin tone with some browns. Maybe. Got this paint mixed up relatively thick, so it's gonna leave bigger dots. You need help, Owen? You need help? Man, this mixed up too thick. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. Okay, so this side has the brown, right has brown, left does not. So you can kind of see what's going on there. We'll do that to the rest, and then come back and do a lighter brown. All right, next color, guys, kind of this kind of caramel brown color, a little lighter. Do that on these guys, and after that will be white, and then we'll start adding some, layering some skin tones on. It starts to blend all these colors together a little bit. Okay, so that caramel color, that's without it. Pretty big difference. So we'll do that on the other parts, and we'll do white. All right, last color is gonna be white. And then we'll move on to layering on some skin tones. So I'm backed off quite a bit here. I got my air pressure turned up a little bit. And I'm just going to do this very lightly. There's with the white, I'm not sure if you'll tell the difference, it's pretty subtle, and without the white. So it just kind of blends everything in a little bit. So I back up a lot because I don't want to lose all that effect we've been working on for the past hour. And if we back up, it'll hit the nose and the high spots first. We'll get some big specks in there. I don't mind a few big specks because that just looks like a freckle or a pore, but not too big. So you back up, and it'll hit the high spots first and just kind of fade off into the shadows. So it starts to add a little shading to everything. So it hits the top of the nose first, then the cheeks. And got a little big spot here and there. Just take them off. There you go. So we'll do the arms, and then we'll start doing some skin tones. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to start laying on some light coats of light African flesh. And I'm going to actually zoom out. I like this new phone. I can zoom in, zoom out. It's got like 12 lenses on it or something like that. It's crazy. So I can back up and show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to back up. I got my air pressure turned down about 20 psi. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm just going to go 1 to 1. Okay, so I'm backed up quite a bit here. And I'm going to start misting this on real light because I don't want to cover up what I did. And I just go like this. I just do broad strokes to make sure I get even coverage. And that's it. Then I go back and I do the same thing to all the other pieces. The trick with this, doing something like this, is maintain that everything is the same kind of tonal value. And then I always forget underneath the chin, so I do that and then come back and forth real quick. Just like that. And we'll do arms. Arms are a little trickier because they're bigger, so it's harder to kind of get an even coat. And we're just going to do this real slow. My needle may be bent. Or I got clogged. It's kind of spraying a little funny. Like that. And I put this to the side so I don't get overspray on it. This process. I haven't sealed these yet, by the way, at all. These straight arms are easier to do because I can do one straight pass and get even coverage. The bent arm's a little harder because I gotta kind of adjust. I spray a little bit. And then I'll go through and I'll check these to make sure that we're relatively even on everything. The air pressure just kicked off. So I need to wait. I think about my air compressors overheating because it's up in the attic. So I'm gonna wait until it kicks back on. And then I'm gonna finish this up and then we'll come back and do another pass. Okay, I just switched airbrushes. That one just needs to be clean. So now we're gonna do a second pass, kind of the same thing. Back way off. Don't forget the ears, especially when there's hair around them. It's hard to get behind them sometimes. That. Probably do 3 passes of this, and then we'll go and do some shading. And then do this again. One thing I forgot to do is the veins. So I'm going to try a different technique because I would have done that already. Typically, I would have done the veins already. So they're underneath all this, but I'm going to try another technique I've seen before that I've never done, which is basically just really watered down watercolors on top of the skin so it's still translucent, but you get the effect. Okay, so this is kind of like my go-to pre-mixed skin tone is this light African flesh. I think it's a really good kind of starting point for a Caucasian skin. Again, just kind of miss this on. We don't want to lose all that speckling we did. You can still see it. I'm starting to bury it. Real light. So this should, these skin tones and portraits will take me all day and probably another night a little bit. And then if I get these done, then it's pretty much done. I gotta do cigars, but those are relatively simple. I think. I say that now. I always say that and then I spend like 4 hours on something like that. Oh, it's simple and it takes me half a day. So like what I do is I'll do these two and then I'll look at them compared to each other and it's like, okay, are we pretty consistent? And we're looking pretty good. They don't have to be exactly the same because again, this is skin. You know, it's going to be some imperfections here and there, but we want it relatively close. Okay. little bit more on this, and then we'll do a third pass, and then I'll probably go seal it. I haven't sealed these yet. I haven't used this sealant. Got the lid of my hairbrush. Ah, crap. Hope I didn't nick any paint, because this is a great technique, but if you nick paint, it is a bitch to blend, because you got so many different layers to go in there and try to kind of emulate with a little brush touch. I mean, I've done it before, but it's just a pain in the ass. Okay, so let's get those. Pretty good. Okay, so a third pass. I'm just going to kind of fan it on this time. And that's looking really good right there. I love the portrait where he's smoking. That's my favorite out of these two. It's a great sculpt. Hit these parts of the keys. I haven't been doing that. One guy, who's it? What's the painter? I forgot the painter's name. He does a really nice touch, which I've been meaning to do. He goes and paints all the keys black on his paint ups, which is just a really nice kind of finishing touch. So those look really good. Do the same thing. We're just going to kind of fan it on. When you fan it on, you get a kind of a nice, more even covering. Just kind of blends everything in a little bit better. That's looking really good. And then I will seal these because when I go to do my first step of shading, which will be with a transparent color, if I get a little pooling or a little drip or something, or a little spritz from my airbrush, I want to be able to wipe it off relatively quickly and easily without damaging this paint. So it's a good idea to seal at this stage. Anytime you think you might have to go back and kind of rub some paint off or kind of do something like that, it's a good idea to have a layer of sealer between those steps. So right here I got a little too much of the skin tone on this. Okay, I see that it's a little heavy right there. I just got too close with the airbrush, but it's not that big of a deal. Just ran out of this. Okay, so that looks really good. So all that work, and that's basically the base skin tone. So I'm gonna go seal these really well. We'll let them dry, and then we'll go and do some shading. Because before, you can't, with all the speckling, you can't see the sculpt. And I actually could go in and do the veining now, I think too. So I might do that. So I'm gonna seal these, and then we'll come back. All right, so now we're gonna do some shading. Those will dry for a little while. And I've got some transparent burnt sienna in here, and I put some retarder in here, so hopefully I don't get too much dry brush or dry tip. So these look really good so far. Really happy with how these are looking. I'm gonna see if I can. I'm not sure if the white balance looks okay. So I'll come in a little bit. And this is one of those steps where I have to get really close with the airbrush, so we'll see if I can do this. So I got my paper over here, got this thin down a little bit. I usually take the needle guard off so I can clean up any dry tip I might get. Out of the Garage Kit's thinner, I usually put some thinner in here too. Not sure if you're seeing that. There's not much coming out. Back up just a little bit. So here we go. So we come in here and hit the shadows, and we usually hit them a little heavier than not because we're going to go back and this will autofocus. Come on. Let's just turn autofocus off. Let's see. Autofocus. Okay. Yeah, turn it off. All right, so we're gonna come in here, start hitting these shadows. And usually as soon as I start airbrushing on camera, my needle dries, which it just did. I don't do this on camera a lot because I have to constantly dry the, get the dry tip, the dry tip off the needle, and it's just a slow process because I get dry tip so easily. Let's start up here in the eyes. I really hit those sockets pretty heavily. Yeah. I think my needle might be bent. So we're going to over exaggerate these because we're going to go back and hit it with the little, again with the light African flesh a little bit. I got my needle locked down pretty tight, so not much paint comes out. And the cheeks. So these cheeks I back off because it's a nice big shadow. As it tightens down, I get closer. You gotta be quicker. You gotta move the airbrush quicker as you get closer because it'll pool. Get some shadows from the temple. Real tighten these little wrinkles. Like that. really tight wrinkles here on the nose, on the bridge. And try to get them with the airbrush. This is hard to do when I'm trying to film because I need to be really have this right in front of my face. That's why a lot of times I don't do this on camera. And then I also go back in and do pastels, and so this is just the initial adding shadows. Some wrinkles right here on the forehead. So I'm just going to do this one head on camera, and then I'll do everything else off camera. Some dry tip. Clean it off. Spend a lot of time fighting the dry tip. So after I do this head, I'll do all the other parts, and I'll show you what it looks like. And then we'll seal everything, and then we'll do a mist coat of the light African flesh. I also hit the hairline. Remove the chin. And then I always forget behind the ears, so I'm going to hit that real quick because I always forget behind the ears. I hit that pretty heavily and under the ears. I got this really cheap quick connect on my airbrush that's constantly leaking air. That's why you're hearing that hissing noise. And then these are hard to get down here in the neck, but because the sculpt, it's really hard to get the airbrush down there, especially when I'm trying to video. And I can't get real tight, so it's hard to get a real sharp, really the shape I want. But we do our best. My PSI is about 20 right now. I tend to keep it around there. And then get down in the ear a little bit. I typically do most of my shading on the ears with pastels because I have more control of where I can get the color. And I'm going to hit just the outside edge of this a little bit. Create a little shadow around the neckline. Real light, just like that. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So that's what that looks like. So it's pretty harsh right now, but we're gonna do the shading on all the other parts, and then we'll mist on a couple coats of the light African flesh. So once I'm done doing this to everything else, we'll come back. Alrighty, so we got those all shaded. Let me show you what that kind of looks like real quick. So here are the two heads. Just exposure down a little bit. Looking pretty good. Put those aside. And then I'll show you one arm, but basically that's what we got here. Looking good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to mist on 2 light coats of the light African flesh again. So I'm going to go back and mist on some of this. Is basically our base color. And again, I'm going to back off quite a bit, and we're going to mist this on. Okay, that. Same thing with this guy. And about there, we don't want to lose the shading. Arms. You need that clean airbrush again. Yeah, and backed off pretty good here. I'm gonna, after this, I'm gonna mist on a very light coat. I think of some bright flesh. Yeah, clean this airbrush again. It keeps clogging up on me. That's looking pretty good. This is all coming out. Okay, I gotta change airbrushes again. This is getting all speckly on me for some reason. I just cleaned the damn airbrush out. Let's go back to the other one. I don't mind if it's speckly, but it wasn't speckly on the first few pieces, so I just want to make sure it's all consistent. This is looking pretty good so far. Again, it's real light. The last thing you want to do is go and cover up all that work you've been doing the past few hours. So this will dry down a little bit, get a little bit darker. Once I do this, I'll get all the parts out here and look at them real quick, just compare them, see how they look. That's looking good. Okay, let's look at these real quick next to each other. Here are the arms, see how we're looking. Could probably blend this one just a hair more. Okay, this is looking pretty damn close. Since I use this left one as a comparison, we'll look at this one with it. And I could probably blend this one just a hair more. Super light. Okay. It's looking pretty good. You can see, I'm not sure if it's showing up in camera, but you can see all that speckling and everything we did. It's looking really good. It looks like freckles and pores and pretty good. Let's do these heads again. I think I'm going to hit this one a little bit more. About there. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to do, so I did this on the Superman, it looks really good. Let's try out of that. I'm going to take some, I think I got some bright flesh. This has got a little bit of kind of reddish orange in it, and you do it super light. I'm just going to mix it in the cup that I have in there. It's got a little bit of the so I have a little pinkness to everything. Like that. So after this, I'm going to seal this. And I'm going to go into my pastels. And then we'll hit it again with the light African flesh. Again, it's like shading, light African flesh, shading, light African flesh. You just go back and forth. Okay, so the bright flesh is back way off. This really gives us some fleshiness, and that's actually looks really good on the arms. It's super subtle. It's like it's 1 second, it looks like nothing, and then the next second it's like, okay, it's too much. So you gotta be super careful with this color. So I'm back way off. You probably don't even notice it in camera. This may be it for the hands, for the arms, except for the hairs and the veins. These are looking pretty good. Compared to the other one. Yeah, it's looking good. Pretty happy with that. Let's compare it with this bent arm. Look at the biceps, really make sure those are matching pretty good and everything's looking pretty good. Okay. So now I'm going to go seal this and then go from there. Let's see. Let's pour just one more time. Let me hit this one just a hair more. I think I got shoulder just a little bit too much. I want to even it out. You're probably not seeing any difference in camera, but it's super subtle in person. You can go really too far with this color really, really quick. Okay, so let's go seal those, and then we'll do the next step. Alrighty, next step is we're going to go with pastels, and this is kind of where everything comes together for the most part. So I've got burnt sienna, and then I've got this is, oops, that's been all crumbly. This is burnt sienna tint, so it's like the highlight color. Fortunately, these are pan pastels. You can get these on Amazon. My local hobby store or art supply store, my really nice art store carries these. So we're going with the shadow color first, and I get some on my brush, and I dab it into the shadows, and I just kind of accentuate the shadows with this color, and then we're going to go back in and do the highlights, and then it's going to look really punchy again and then we'll do another mist coat of the base color. So again, just layering and layering and layering and layering, and eventually we get to where we want. This part goes relatively quick. I've already got the shadows established. I'm just adding another tone to them. I'll do the shadows, and then I'll seal them, and then we'll go in and do the highlight. So this is where I can really pinpoint where I want things. So I get more control with the bristle brush than I do with an airbrush. And then usually at that point is when I go in and do the hair, get that blocked in, because that really makes a difference on what the skin tone will look like. So again, he's gonna look kind of funky and punchy. And then I'll have to do the veins with the watercolor technique that I was speaking of, because it's just too late to go in and airbrush them in now at this point. So we'll give that a shot. Never done it before. I used to doing pastels. That works okay. I don't have I need to get some more colors in my pan pastels. I basically have like half a dozen colors, but I like to get some of the more vibrant colors for like doing veins and stuff like that. So you can see I'm just kind of going in here and dabbing it on. Get a little bit on my brush. So these little fine lines are hard to get with the pastels. So I can go back in there with a wash maybe and get those. So that's kind of how that looks. So I'll do that to the other face, and then we'll seal it and come back. All right, so I did the other head and the arms, and now we're going to go in with this sienna tint, and this is going to be our kind of like our highlight. And I don't have the brush I want. So I like this little chiseled brush for doing this. There it is. So we're gonna go in the nose. I blow most of it off and then blend it in. A little bit down here. Again, it's gonna be punchy, and then we're gonna blend it in with a little light misting of some airbrush color on top. And then that should get us to where we need to be. So again, lots of back and forth, building up the layers. So this color I'm just hitting on the very bright spots, highlights. You can still see all that flecking we did earlier. Blow off the excess and kind of blend it out a little bit, soften the edge so it's not just a harsh highlight. You can kind of bring out these wrinkles up here by just not going into the wrinkles with this color. Just kind of going between them. Even though it's going to get painted, we're going to go over that a little bit. The ears, and the ears I just kind of like do a dry brush thing. I just kind of take the edge of the brush and hit the tops of the ears. Maybe a slightly bigger brush, because this one I was using earlier, but get most of the other color off. So this area's got hair on it, but we'll just dry brush the hair. So you just see the skin underneath it. This is a little harsh, so I'm going to go tap on that again. I'll show you on the arms here too in a second. It's a big area, you can just kind of do this kind of thing. I like this as a highlight color, but it's pretty pale as far as like skin tone goes, so it's a great undertone for the last little bit of blending in we're going to do. So that's what that looks like. It's pretty punchy, but once we hit this again with a little bit of our skin tone, the light African flesh, it's going to look good. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Let's do this guy. This guy's got more detail in the face. I really like this sculpt. This one's really good. Not a big fan of the other one. My son is going nuts on Fortnite in the background, as you can probably hear. I'm just stick with this bigger brush and just use the kind of corner of it to get to the small areas. It's just a little quicker. Sometimes you see here I kind of wipe off the excess on my glove here. Because you can, if you put too much on at one time, it can go opaque. Meaning that you won't see all the stuff you've done underneath. So you gotta be a little careful with these, because these are very highly pigmented
pastels. That's why they're so awesome, and that's why they're expensive. Usually one cake is about $7 or $8 for one of these. And you can get the sets on Amazon. That's why I got the skin tone set. And it came with black, white, some gray, these skin tones. But I wish I had some other tones in it, so I'm gonna pick up some more of these. Just have some other options. But I think, I'm not sure if you can see all the, you can still see all that initial spattering we did in the beginning. It's still there. It's just, we're just burying it every time we do a step, so it looks like it's under the skin. That's the whole point. I'm doing all these layers. Bury that, but we can still see it. It gives you some really nice natural looking skin tone and texture, and it's really, I mean, it's time consuming, but it looks great. None of this is fast. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Again, it's really punchy, but we're gonna blend it all together here in a little bit. There's actually one tone higher. Oh, what the hell is that? I'm afraid to do this, but I have to touch that up. I got a little imperfection on the side of the nose here. I just noticed. So I'm going to touch that up with some paint. I'll have to brush touch it. So we can hide a little bit right now. It's like a little piece of resin sludge I didn't notice from the very beginning when I was doing prep work. Should kind of get rid of it. Okay, that's looking good. I'll just touch that in a little bit later. And then one of the arms, I thought I was going to leave the arms alone, but I decided to kind of go back and replicate what I'm doing here on the heads. I'm not going to do as much, but I did this color in the shadows. I'm going to kind of come in here with the highlight color. Oopsie, I kind of want to opaque up a little too much on. Don't want it to go opaque. We want to see through this. So that's why I'm going to do this kind of pretty lightly on the arms. Because I actually like the arms where they are, but I want the tones to be similar to the faces, so that's why I went back and kind of hit the arms too. I like the chisel brush because when you tap on it, you get most of the pressure in the center of the brush, and then the pressure is less around on the edges of the bristles, and it gives it a nice, blends everything really nicely. This would actually be better with a bigger brush, but we'll make it work. Just kind of got a little heavy right there. If you have to, you can always dampen a Q-tip and take it off. It will smear a little bit. Just gotta be careful. You have to go back and blend it in. But so anyone that actually watches these 3 and 4 hour long work in progresses, I actually do say stuff while I'm doing them, as I'm thinking of tips and stuff I can give you that work for me, or what tips I've picked up from other painters, because a lot of these techniques I've picked up from other guys, or they've shared them with me. So it's not because I just know what the hell I'm doing. Half the time I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making shit up. But eventually we get there. Yeah, the veins will be tricky now that I haven't, since I should have done this way early. See, I just got a big piece of pastel there in the hand. I just dampen a Q-tip and wipe it off. I have like a, since I haven't touched that area, it comes off really easily. You can draw with them. I kind of, well, like these long muscles, I'll kind of draw them on like this. So the hands are always tough because there's a ton of detail in the sculpt. So that's where I find the pastels come in handy, because I can really pinpoint. You know, I'm okay with airbrush. Somebody's got, man, they can like draw freaking hairlines with them. I'm not there. I can't do that. But I can do pretty well with a brush and pastels. So that's why I like doing this. I'm not sure if that's been in focus the whole time. It's probably focused on my brushes in the background, sorry. And some of these highlights I'm not hitting, just they're really the ones that'd be the brightest, like the knuckles. And then I gotta paint the fingernails. Those will go pretty quick. And a different flesh color. So I'm off camera down here. Yeah, so this step goes relatively quick. So again, I've got all the shadows there. I'm just accentuating the highlights and shadows. So this step is actually relatively pretty quick in the whole grand scheme of things. But you can see here I'm getting some more shape and definition in the hand. Sorry if that was a lot of focus. I'm learning how to use the camera on my new phone, and it's okay. There's actually a test model, so the camera's not a production camera. So it may not work as well as something you can buy in the store, but that's okay. So it looks pretty good. The hand's looking really good. I'm getting all that shape in there now. There we go. That's what I need to do. Draw that shape out. The knuckles and the muscles of the hand. Alright. So I'm going to do the other hands like this. We're going to seal it, the other arms I should say, and then we're going to go back and we'll mist on. Again, we'll just do a super light misting of probably the African flesh. I don't know, maybe try something else. Starting to kind of do the same thing over and over again. And although they all have kind of the same colors and techniques, they do all end up looking different because, you know, they're done on different days and stuff. But that's what that looks like. Yeah. So I'm gonna do that to the other arms, and we'll seal them, and then we'll mist on another color, another skin tone. All right, so we're back to our light African flesh, and again, we're just gonna lightly mist this on. and kind of blend this all together. Bring down my exposure again. Back way off. I'm just going to build this up till I get to the look I want. About there. So that's what we're going to do the other head and the arms, and then I'll do, again, a light misting probably of bright flesh or the transparent bright flesh, and I'll add a little pinkness to it. And then the skin should be where I want it, and then I'll block in the hair. All right, I'm going to mist on a very light coat again of the transparent bright flesh. Super, super light. Shift the color a little bit. That's about it. Give it a nice fleshy look. It's pretty pale up until this point. So pretty good. Same thing on the arms, real light. Come back way off, probably see. That's pretty good. Good. Yeah. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So if I look at my own arm, it's looking pretty good. It's a little bright, just a little brighter, which is fine. I'm kind of tan right now. but I kind of use my own skin as a kind of a guide as far as like subtleties and stuff like that, and I think those look pretty good. So let's check these out next to each other. Yeah, that looks good. Check out the other arm next to it, make sure that they match. They do. Okay, so I'm going to seal that, and then I'm going to block in the hair. And I'm not going to do that on camera because it's just base coating. It takes forever. So the one with the cigar, we're doing Old Man Logan, and that's kind of where we're going to make him look old is in the hair. We're going to kind of do a aging look. I'm not sure if I'm going to do all gray. I think I'm going to do, I think I may paint him kind of the same and then add gray to the other one. And just the sculpt already kind of makes him look old already, so kind of nice that that's already done that way. So I'm going to base coat, I'm going to seal these, base coat the hair, and then I'll come back and show you adding the highlights and stuff. And then it'll really give us a really good sense of what the skin looks like. Because adding the hair makes a big difference of what the skin looks like. So I'll come back when that's done. All right. So I'm working on the hair on this guy, just the base coating. Kind of want to show you what I'm doing. So I mixed equal amounts of raw umber and burnt umber, and this is kind of my base coat, kind of a dark brown. For the chest hair, I just took some of that paint, and I just got most of it off my brush, and it's sculpted very nicely. I'm just dry brushing it on, just using the flat part of my brush, just like this. And if a little bit gets on the skin, that's okay, because it'll just kind of add some tanness to it. So just like this, it's sculpted very nicely, so it's very easy to do. So that takes care of the chest hair. And then he's got this kind of stubble underneath the chin, and for that I'm doing the same thing. It kind of comes all the way down here, and I'm just using I got this flat brush, kind of medium flat brush. I'm just using the tips of the bristles very lightly, kind of doing this motion up the chin and down the chin, and it's just hitting the tops of the hairs. It's getting a little bit on the skin, and I'm blending it into the rest of the beard, just like that. So it looks pretty good. Now he does have a little bit on his upper lip too, I just noticed. So the nice thing about this brush is that the ends kind of split a little bit, and when I do this, it kind of blends it very nicely into the skin. And here you can see that I kind of made little wisps of the hair going onto the head. And I use a number 10. I have this number 10 brush, and it just had this great little tip on there, and I just kind of wisped it in, so it looks like it's being pulled nice and taut. And then, yeah, I see a little bit on this upper lip here. I'm kind of reluctant to do anything with it because I don't know if I like it there. I'm not going to touch that yet. I may go back and do that later. So we got the eyebrows blocked in, we got the hair blocked in. We'll let this dry, and I'll probably have to go back and do another coat on the main area because it usually takes at least 2 coats, especially after it's dried. I can see if I missed any spots and any thin spots. But I do see a little spot over here where I need to bring the hair under the face just a little bit more. So I just take some of my paint. It's got a little bit of water, not much. It's pretty opaque. And I just take this, and the brush has a great little one random hair on the end, and you just kind of can see it. Just gets just the right amount of paint on the face to make it look like it's growing out of his face. It works really, really, really well. Just like that. And just go around the edges. So the hair, I love the hair sculpt on it. I think it's really, really good. See a little spot here. The air compressor release valve going off in the background. And if I get a little too much on there, just take my Q-tip and wipe it off, just like that. So that's looking pretty good right there. I'm going to base coat the other head the same manner, and then we'll do some dry brushing and bring out the details. Alright, so we got the hair base coated. I went ahead and base coated the eyes too while I was at it. So we're going to do the young Logan first. So we're going to give him some younger hair. Old man Logan is kind of gray hair. Even though in the old man, I based his hair in the same color as this. And I just don't want it gray. I'm going to do brown with gray undertone. So let me get a big, nice brush here. And we're going to start off with just some burnt sienna. I have like a recipe for brown hair. That seems to work pretty good. So I'm just going to come in with some burnt sienna, dry brush it on. And at first, it's not going to really show you're going to see a whole lot going on. Look at this. This right here, kind of bluish tone. Come on, focus. So just kind of put it on there, not real careful until I get around the edges. I don't want to get this on the skin. If I do something at the end of the world, I can take it off with a Q-tip. Got a towel over here on my lap that I'm taking the majority of the paint off. Just kind of getting some down in those crevices a little bit, not a lot. Watch that showing up in camera. Never know if any of that shows up in camera. And then we hit the eyebrows a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna hit chin a little bit. Kind of went back and did a little more on the chin, just because the sculpt kind of called for it. I'm not going to do any of the chest. I'm just going to leave that as is. Okay, looks pretty good. I'm just kind of shifting the color a little bit. Yeah, I cannot stop seeing John Travolta on this skull because someone said it looks like John Travolta, and that's all I see is John Travolta. It's really kind of annoying. All right, so to this, I'm going to add a little yellow, I think. We'll see. Actually, I need to get some of my base color back in there. So I get some of my base color. Here we go. That's what I want. You can see my color here. So there's a little burnt sienna, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of the base color I used. I don't want to go too bright with this because here it's not real bright brown. I do want to give it some shape. This gives a little more highlight. A little bit brownish red undertone. It's looking pretty good. Eyebrows a little bit. Chin. Sideburns a little harder since they're kind of gives the light a little bit more. That's looking pretty good. Let me hit these tips a little bit more on the back. And just kind of top of the part a little bit. This will dry down a little bit, so but these highlights look good. I've seen him with black hair every once in a while, and it's he really has dark brown hair, and I tend to go a little brighter with it. I like it. Okay, so I think that looks pretty damn good. I think we'll call that hair done. Got just enough highlighting to give it some shape and stuff, so let's put that aside. And bring Old Man Logan. So this guy, we're going to dry brush some grays on top of this. So let me get a neutral gray here, relatively bright. I'm just going to use the same brush. Oh, I actually have some bone white mixed in there before I did the eyes. So I got this kind of tone of gray here. We're going to make this, let me just add up a little bit. All the pictures I've seen of Old Man Logan, he's just straight up gray hair with white highlights. I wanted to do something a little different. Start with brown. And then go from there. So I'm going in with the direction of the hair. You'll still see the brown underneath it, but it's just going to tint it a little bit. Oops. Don't want to do that. The trick is blending this edge here. Just enough. That's looking good.
Hey, anybody, your girls over there have drinks in the front yard.
Okay. All right. I don't have a whole lot of paint on my brush. Just enough to kind of So I'm not quite done with the skin either. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do some washes on the cheeks and stuff. But it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to dry brush this direction with the gray, and then I'm going to dry brush the opposite direction with white. And that'll give us an old man Logan look. At least it should. That's the plan. That's my idea. Let's see if it works. This color doesn't have to be super like, doesn't have to be like an even coat like the base coat was. This can have some inconsistencies in it. Good. Anywhere I want a little more gray, I'll just add some to it. I'm not a fan of gray hair that's just been painted gray and then white highlights on top. That's not natural. Like I have gray hair, but my hair's not just gray and white. It's got, you know, brown undertones when I wasn't gray. All right, let's hit the eyebrows. Again, going in the direction of the hairs, so I kind of get on tops and down in the crevices a little bit. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay. Now we're gonna add some white to that. This is the gray I've been using. Oops, I missed some spots down here underneath the chin. The sideburns, I should say. I should probably hit this edge down here a little bit too. Okay, let's add a little white for this. And I'm still seeing stuff. Hey, Owen, call your dog. Damn bats that hound the whines anytime anyone goes outside and she's not part of it. Do something. Get her to stop whining. Sure. What time is it? I know she's out. I know she's outside, so she's whining. Okay. Anyway, to white. And mix that in with the gray, so get a very light gray, and then we'll do. I'll go to white next. This is a very light gray, even though it looks white. That's looking good. So the last thing we'll do is just go straight white and we'll just hit the tips. We get a nice kind of gray with brown undertones. I will hit the chest hair with this on top. I'm gonna take a break and go kill my dog here in a second. Just freaking out. My wife's outside with her friends and she wants to be a part of it. Alright, just straight white. This is my craft paint white, so it's a little, I have to do it a few times because it's pretty translucent. So as it dries down, it loses some of its brightness. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to kind of fade this off that way. Chest hairs a little bit, real lightly. I'll give those a nice bright highlight. And there you go. That looks pretty fucking badass, if I do say so myself. Oops. You're left alone. I always do that. It's like, oh, it looks great, and then I go fuck something up. The story of my life. Actually, like when that looks good, I should just not touch it. Alrighty. So hair is done, I think, on the portraits. Looks really good. So I'll seal this, and then we'll do the eyes, and then I'll probably do a little more. Then I do gotta do the lips. I may do a little more shading on the skin with some washes, just on these really fine wrinkles. I mean, it's looking really good though. I may just leave it. I don't want to mess with it. So let me seal these, and we'll come back. All right, let's put some eyes in. So these have been sealed. They sat for a few minutes. As always, I cheat and I use decals, but I have actually been hand painting some eyes lately because I've run out of the colors I like. But so we decided to go with blue. I've done a bunch of Wolverines, and depending on the client, I've done blue, hazelnut, and brown. I think in the comics he has blue eyes. It seems to me like every superhero has blue eyes, so I don't know what the hell that's about. So as you can see, he's real squinty. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to trim these down pretty good, probably about halfway. So he's looking up a little bit. So I'm not sure if you can see me. I'm actually off down here. Yeah, I'm going to trim this decal. I'm going to trim them all about the same. So I'm going to trim it right above the retina, just so I get a little bit of the retina off. Like that, and I'm going to trim the next one right next to it so they're the same orientation and everything. And I think the other portrait is even more squinty than this one, so I'll just put them right next to each other, and that way I get them as close as possible. So these are from Archer, and they actually give you like a cutting guide, but I've never used it, but I just kind of eyeball it. I eyeball the eyes. So there we go. We have little half eyes. We got a little thing of water over here. Right here. And I need a toothpick right here. And we're gonna put one of these in. So I trim these as close as I can to the eye, and I leave just the teeniest tiny little bit of white on one side so I can grab it with my X-Acto knife, and I'm using a brand new X-Acto knife. So I get that wet, and then I get a clean brush, or relatively clean brush, and I also put water on the eye that I'm placing it on. And then these don't take that long to release, at least they shouldn't. I'm going to try to take it off my X-Acto knife, like that. Come in. I can actually zoom in pretty good with this phone. Hopefully it's in focus, I don't know. And now I'm just going to take this and slide it up into position. These are very fragile decals, so you get like 2 attempts to get it into place and then they fall apart. So you got to kind of get it the first time. So he's looking, I'm gonna have him looking to his, actually I need to put him, I'm gonna have him looking to his left a little bit, because that's the way his head is tilted. I'm just getting some more water on my brush here. Let's get the paper out of the way. And you can take the water off your brush and soak up some of the excess water. Now, one thing I don't like about these decals is they really don't set in place until you put setting solution on them. And there's a little overlap on the lower eyelid. That's okay. We're going to trim that off after I set it and it dries. And I do that on purpose. I used to leave the whole thing on. I was really struggling kind of getting them into position because I actually had to fold the eye to get it in there. So there's one. It's not very pretty yet. We'll get there. And then let's put the other one in. Same thing. Get it wet. Oops. Really don't want to lose it in the water. Because what you don't want is the decal coming off the paper in the water. You will never catch it. Especially something that small. Ooh, almost lost it. A little water on the eye. So I start off with a lot of liquid in the area that I'm working, because that way I can move the decal around much easier. It's basically floating on top of the eye right now. It's not set. So these eyes are kind of blue-green. They actually look really nice. They're very piercing. So this is where I'm going to try to get it set so they're looking the same direction. So until you soak up the excess water, it's not going to sit down in the socket. Right now it's floating. Okay. That looks pretty good. So the way I try to line up eyes, and sometimes I don't get them exactly perfect, because I basically point my nose at the character's nose and then look at the eyes from there. Another trick that people do is they'll turn the head upside down, and what that does is it distracts your eyes from looking at all the features in the face and just looking at the eyes, and I can tell right here that I got them in the right spot. So that's a really good trick that a lot of old school painters have taught me. Turn the head upside down, because then you're not looking at the nose and everything. You're simply looking at the shape and placement of the eyes. So now I'm going to put my setting solution in, and I put a lot in. Just going to flood it and just let it sit. Don't touch it, just let it dry. And this should take, 10-15 minutes to dry. And then after that is done, I'll usually do this step twice. I'll do setting solution twice just to make sure it's really good and sunken in there. And then once that dries, I'll trim the bottom of the eyelid, the bottom of the eyeball off, and then seal it. So I'll do that to the other head, and then we'll go from there. Oh, and another thing, I leave them sitting like this while they dry, so I don't want to set it up in case, because I use so much setting solution, I don't want the eyes to fall out of the socket, so I leave them laying like this. Okay, so while the eyes are drying, I'm going to try to fix my vein debacle where I didn't do the veins when I was supposed to do. So I got this kind of bluish green color mixed up here in my cup. Just the craft paint. And I got it watered down pretty good. We get some Q-tips here. Now, this is something I've never tried before, doing it this way. We'll see how it goes. But basically, I just want to stain the skin a little bit with this color where the veins are. And hopefully, it'll look like they're not painted on, but they're under the skin. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to kind of draw it on a little bit. And I'm going to take a Q-tip and dab. And by George, it looks really freaking good. Oh man. It's just the amount I want. I like them super, super subtle. I don't like them when they look like highways on the arms. And then we dab. It looks pretty good. If I don't like it, I can take a little water or something and tone it down a little bit. Actually, almost kind of like this better because I have a little more control. Love using a lining brush. I've said it before, over and over again. Just need a lot of control over with the lining brush. If I want it a little darker, I can just go do it again. I think you're seeing that. It's a little too bright or a little too dark. I can take it back a little bit with some water. So when you dab like this, it soaks it up, but also blends it in a little bit. Softens it. Get a little more water to this, I think. I'm not going to do all this on camera, but I think you get the idea. If I want it a little fatter, I just kind of push down with the brush a little bit. If I want it skinnier, just lift up on it. Actually a really good technique because it's really easy to go back and take some off or put more on. Oops. All right, so I'm going to do this, and the veins will be done. Yay! Alrighty, so I trimmed the eyes. I went and did the little eyeliner, and the eyes are done except for glossing, so they look really good. Did the veins on the necks, so this has all been sealed. So the last thing to do on the face is I'm going to add a little redness to the cheeks and to the lips. And then well, I think what else I gotta do left? I got to do some hair on the arms. I gotta figure that out. Not sure I'm gonna do that because it's not sculpted on top. It's actually like scratched into the surface. So I kind of need to figure out how I'm gonna do that. So I just take red and make a really watery red. Super watery. And I make sure I got a Q-tip nearby. I just kind of maybe too. Need a better brush. It's not big enough. And I need more water on this. Mostly water. May not be the right red, might be a little too. Take most of it off. And we're just gonna here. And then we dab. Then do it again. And we dab. Just 2 or 3 times. And this is real subtle, but it has some nice fleshiness to the cheeks. I'm not sure if you can tell the difference between the two sides, but we'll do it again on this side. Just again, we're just kind of staining the surface. You want to dab it off pretty quick because if it starts to dry, then you'll get an edge. We don't want an edge. I'll do it again one more time on this side. Okay, it's pretty subtle, but it's there. All right, now we're gonna do the lips. Kind of the same way. Kind of pink. It's basically just pinking him, make him a little pink. Put it on, wipe it off, and just build it up until you get the tone you want. Not too much. Stab it off. Okay. So these will get one more round of flat or sealer, and then the eyes almost will get slightly glossed. And then the portraits will be done. It looks pretty good. Do a little bit on old man. We gotta do the cigars too. That should be pretty simple. I said the last time then. Hopefully they won't take too long. basically paint them brown and then paint the end of it gray with some dry brushing. Again, very subtle, but it's there. Don't want it to look like it has lipstick on. Okay, that's good. It usually takes about 3 or 4 times to do this before you see it. I think this guy looks pretty good. Pretty happy with how he looks. I think the kid overall paint job's good. Okay. It's looking pretty good. Cheeks are got a little bit of rose to them, not a lot, just enough to give them some life. It's pretty subtle. Okay, that looks good. So I'll flat coat these one more time, and then I'll gloss the eyes, and then the lips and the portraits will be done. Okay, so we're in the home stretch. So I just asked my client if he wanted to glue the plaque on, and now he tells me he wants me to see if I can find something to print for a plaque, which is no big deal. I did it for Hellboy. I just wish I would have known that a week ago, because I thought I was going to get this finished tonight, but now I'm not, because I got to find something to print and glue to the base, which is fine. I actually like the plaque for this one. Usually the plaques that come with these I don't like, especially the Hellboy, because it looks like a Metal Boy. So so it's not gonna get done tonight. I thought it was, but I guess it'll get done tomorrow. So anyway, for the hair on the arms, it's a little tricky because the hair is not sculpted. It's not a relief sculpt. It's actually scratched into the surface. So I took a wash and basically washed the arms and then just wiped it away. I did that a couple times, and then the paint stays in the cracks of where the hair is. So the trick with that is you gotta, this is a flat surface and it wants to stain pretty good. So I had to make sure I didn't get any kind of weird edges, which I'm seeing one right now. Because it's a flat and it stains and it doesn't come off. So I had to be quick. But it's a pretty cool effect. So that arm looks a little tanner because it had a wash done to it. Let's see. So the arms are done. They look really good. I also painted the fingernails just a slight kind of fleshy color. So I did that. I'm going to put those on the statue. It's the first time I've had these on the statue since I've been painted, so sorry about all the noise in the background. Portraits are done. Gloss the eyes. Gloss the lips a little bit. Those look really good. So I'm going to put in young Logan. Oh, I got to glue the claws on too, so I can do that soon. Yeah, looks good. So the cigars. Got to paint the cigars and then glue the claws on it, and then find something to print for. So the cigars, I'm not going to record. I'm just going to paint them brown, and then I'm going to paint the little cherry gray and do some highlighting. So I'm going to paint those. I'll see what I can find to print for a plaque, and then let's see. Yeah, I'll call this work in progress done. It's pretty thorough. So let's back up and see what this guy looks like. Down because camera tends to want to overexpose. Come on. Ah. Oops. Then. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to. There we go. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. And this is a cell phone camera, so I'm not sure how well this is showing up, but it's looking pretty good. It's looking a little washed out in the camera, so maybe I can. I don't know, it looks blue to me. I don't know. I have to mess with this camera. So there's that portrait. There's old man Logan portrait. It looks really good. So he's looking the other way. That's the best one, I think. And then he wouldn't have the bent arm in because he's smoking with this one, but boom. The heads do not have magnets, they don't need them. Oh, it looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna paint the cigars and then glue the claws on and see if I can't find a plaque to print last minute for this guy. And then I'll do maybe I'll do a wrap-up video once he's done. So that's it for this work in progress. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.